You're explaining homework or asking your child to get dressed. They're pacing, staring at the floor, already on edge, and you say, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." And everything goes sideways. Phrases like, "Look at me when I'm talking to you," "Use your words," "You know better than that." Those are the ones we grew up hearing, and they sound reasonable, responsible, even caring. And sometimes they do work. But when you're parenting an autistic child, some of these phrases quietly miss what's actually happening in the moment and can make things harder instead. I want to walk through 5 very common phrases, why they often backfire for our kids, and what tends to help instead. If we haven't met yet, I'm Andrea Pollack. I'm a parenting educator and coach and parent of a 27-year-old autistic young man. All right, let's jump in. Phrase number 1, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." This one usually comes from a good place. You want connection. You want to know your child is listening. But for many autistic kids, eye contact obviously just isn't natural. It actually takes effort, and that effort can pull attention away from listening. So think of a time you're explaining homework, you're giving instructions, your child is turning sideways, pacing, or staring at the floor, and it looks like they're not paying attention. So you say, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." They might look up, but the second they do, their brain switches jobs. Now, they're working hard to maintain eye contact, but their ability to process your words drops. You end up with the opposite of what you wanted. Here's the key idea. Your child may already be listening, just not in a way that looks typical. For them, looking away might actually make listening easier. I didn't realize that when my child was young. I told him to look at me all the time, but I get it now. So instead of demanding eye contact, focus on checking for understanding. You might ask them, "Tell me what you heard," or "Tell me what you're going to do," or even tell them to give you a thumbs up if they understand what they're supposed to do now. You're still making sure the communication is happening. You're just not insisting on a body behavior that competes with listening. All right, phrase number 2, "Use your words." This is another one. I used to say it all the time. This one usually shows up when things are already tense. Your child is upset, maybe pointing, crying, pulling on you, or shutting down. And "use your words" sounds supportive. You're encouraging communication. But in those moments, talking may be the hardest thing for them to do. So say your child wants a snack. The one they wanted, you don't have any, it's gone. So they start crying or dragging you toward a cabinet, and you say, "Use your words," and everything escalates from there. Not because they won't talk, but because they can't talk right at that moment. Their nervous system is already overloaded, and speaking is one more demand on a brain that's already in survival mode. What often helps is lowering the pressure to speak and giving other ways to communicate. Something like, "You can point," or "Show me," or "You don't have to talk right now." You're still inviting communication, you're just not insisting the way it has to be in that moment. When that pressure drops, their body often settles a bit, and their ability to use words comes back online more naturally. Phrase number 3, "You know better than that." That's not a phrase I used often, but it's something I heard a lot as a child. This one usually comes out when we're already really frustrated. We're thinking, "We've talked about this, you've done this before, why is this happening again?" And when you say, "You know better than that," we're assuming our child understood the rule and chose not to follow it. But for many of our kids, that's just not what's happening. Most of the time, they do know the rule. They know they're not supposed to hit, they know they're supposed to wait, and sometimes they can even tell you the rule when things are falling apart. What's different in those moments isn't understanding, it's capacity. It's how much they can handle right then. A really common example is after school. Say the day was loud and demanding and full of transitions, then a sibling grabs something, or dinner is late, or plans change. Well, yesterday they handled this exact thing. Earlier today, they might have managed it just fine. But right now, there's no buffer left. So when we say, "You know better than that," we're talking to a version of your child who has plenty of coping room. Yes, they do know, but whether they can execute on what they know, totally different story. We respond as if they made a bad choice, when what we're really seeing is a child whose coping skills are overwhelmed. What often helps more is shifting out of correction and into curiosity. You might say, "Something feels really hard right now," or even, "Looks like this went sideways, let's figure it out." That keeps your child with you instead of pushing them into defense, and it gives you a chance to understand why this thing was too much, too hard this time. This way of responding isn't about memorizing perfect phrases, it's about learning to read what's actually happening for your child in the moment. moment, their capacity, their nervous system, their sensory load, and then choosing your words from there. This is exactly the kind of work I do with my parents in coaching all the time. Not quick fixes, but helping you feel more confident, responding in real time, especially in the hard, messy moments. So if you're listening and thinking, yeah, I'd like help with the hard, messy moments, I'll put a link in the description box below where you can learn more. All right, phrase number 4, stop crying or calm down. Same thing. These usually come from urgency. You want the moment to settle. You want the noise to stop. You want your child to feel better. A classic example is a public meltdown. You're in the store, people are watching, your child is crying hard. Calm down feels logical, but to a dysregulated child, it often lands as, you're not okay like this. Or even, you're not handling this and I'm not sure I can either. And here's the thing, if your child could calm down on command, they'd already be calm. Their body is in full alarm mode, and extra demands, even the kind sounding ones, make the alarm sound louder. I recorded a short a little while back. I'll try to link it. I don't know if you can link shorts, but anyway, it was about being told to calm down when I was stuck alone in an elevator. And I was so furious when the woman told me to calm down. So just think about how you feel when you're really riled up and somebody tells you to calm down. It's not calming, right? What usually helps better is very little language. Calm, steady, grounded. You might say, I'm here, you're safe, I've got you. You're not trying to fix the feeling or shut it off. You're staying present and regulated yourself so their nervous system has something solid to anchor to while the wave passes. All right, phrase number 5. Some version of, if you do the task, you can have a reward. This one is everywhere, and it sounds reasonable, but it quietly assumes that your child is choosing not to do that whatever the task is that you're offering the reward for. Here's a familiar example. Get dressed and then you can have your iPad. If motivation is the issue, this can work. But if getting dressed feels overwhelming, scratchy clothes, too many steps, time pressure, the reward can actually add stress. Now your child isn't just struggling with the task, they're also anxious about losing the thing they care about. So their brain is juggling. This feels awful, and I'm going to lose my iPad at the same time. That combo usually makes things shut down faster, not move forward. What often helps more is making the job smaller and reducing the sense of threat. You might say, this looks hard, or let's just do one sock. Let's start together and then you can finish. You're not removing expectations, you're removing overload. So once the barrier drops, momentum is much more likely to build, and your child gets a real experience of, I can do this, instead of, I failed and lost my reward. None of these phrases make you a bad parent. They're familiar because they've been passed down to us and because they do work in some situations. The shift isn't about never saying them again. It's about noticing when a phrase is asking for something your child just can't access right then, whether it's eye contact, words, self-control, calm, and adjusting from there. When we respond to what's actually happening in their brain and body, meltdowns tend to de-escalate faster, our kids feel understood, and the relationship feels closer even when things are hard. If this felt familiar, share it with another parent who might need to hear it today. You don't need more pressure. You need support that fits your child. And if you want to understand why your child shuts down or gets rigid when things don't go as planned, watch this video. I'll link it here. I'll link it in the description box. It's called, But It's Wrong. Watch that video next. It explains the neurology behind those explosive moments, and it changes how you respond.